Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday International Big Book Workshop. My name is Dan B, and I'm a recovered alcoholic here with you today. I'm stepping in for facilitating for Kemble H. This study relies on you listening, but please, I pray that you have your big book in hand and follow along with a pen, pencil, or highlighter. Make any notes if you have to, and pause and take any write down any questions for after the workshop. We'll keep everyone muted during the workshop except for the facilitators. Any inappropriate behavior will not be tolerated and you will be removed by myself. This meeting is being recorded, the audio portion only and only of myself. The recording will be stopped at the end of the workshop before taking any questions in order to preserve your anonymity. So hopefully you'll have a great meeting. And how we like to start here is with the step 3 prayer, which I'll read out for you. And if you'd like to join in, that's fine as well. Step 3 prayer is found on page 63. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Thank you, guys. So at this point, I go over to you, Kemble, and it's over to myself again. As I explained, the workshop basis is trying to sort of evaluate specific text at certain points, and we only utilize the big book text as our information format, the opinion-driven side of things, etc. So it's not being taken or watered down by other directions or other means. I have left the chat open during me talking. If anybody has any questions that they think would be of relation to what I'm talking about, I'm happy to do that obviously at the same time. So feel free to chip in if you need help or advice or something while I'm talking. Great to see the newcomer in today. Thank you for coming along. It can be quite scary and overwhelming, or what the heck am I doing here scenario.com. And I found specifically for the first good 2 months of AA, specifically because I joined in lockdown, that I had no direction. I didn't have a very good sponsor at the time. I didn't have any specifically good meetings to go to because there was so many that I was getting confused. And the problem with that was obviously I'm not getting the messaging. And once there was an understanding of what the process of being part of AA was, I had no mental issues with the process of going through the steps and taking it further, and actually being part of it. What could I say that I joined? I think I don't think I'll speak out of turn in saying that it's actually quite a lot of people's concept for joining AA is that they just want to stop for a bit or control their drinking, or because they want to do it for their partners, their family. I realized, I think what mine was probably, I could just want to sort of slow down and stop for a bit. I didn't really, even at that point, even though I'd contacted AA and joined the meeting, I was still so belligerently in myself. I hadn't realized how much of a problem I had and how close I was to dying, losing my family, losing my house, all these elements in my life that I was very capable of drinking away, removing, dislodging, and not being affected by. But obviously they were because of my drinking pattern. As I was just saying in the chat before, in terms of having a problem, I, for the last good couple of years at least, every day would say to myself, bloody hell, I'm not having another drink today. I can't drink today. Well, I can't afford the money. Can't afford to drink today. I need to concentrate on work and this, and I want to do this, I want to go to do that. Got kids to look after, got the house to do, blah, 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 blah. It goes on. Easily by mid-morning, the problem of the fact that I needed to not drink had been persuaded by my diseased side of my brain that everything wasn't really that bad and you'd do quite well by relaxing and having a few drinks that evening. And I would fight that a little bit, but by the time towards the time of obviously coming into AA the couple of years prior, a lot of my self-resistance, my self-willpower had just dissipated. Nothing. I felt very down about it. I felt very upset when I was drinking, and I didn't want to drink, but I had to drink, and I didn't have any defense against that process. Jumping forward to, sorry, I'm just keeping people in the waiting room at the same time, so bear with me. Now, the idea, especially for the newcomer, hi, I won't keep you say your name out. There's quite a lot that we need to process in a short period of time if we want to stay sober in terms of not drinking while going through the steps. Okay, that sounds like there's a lot of work to do. There isn't, but by step 3, you should be in a position where you can sustain from having the alcohol or wanting to drink because of the higher power, your the God of your understanding, anything like that that's making you work through the steps to that point is enabling you to be a better person, and not drink. Now, oh, that's cool. Thank you, Taylor. Well done, and as well to everybody. 4 days for Taylor today. It's amazing to see. I would say before I couldn't have done 8 hours, let alone 4 days before the AA program. Now, life on life terms is a pretty much broad structure of what I was wanting to say something about today. And it's probably quite good also for yourself, Taylor, that even though going through the steps from 1 to 12, working with others, taking the principles and doing my work within the realms of how my life has changed, my attitude towards people, my attitude toward liquor has changed. There's a major part of being myself an alcoholic that I need to deal with when I'm not in a meeting, when I'm not working with another alcoholic, when I'm not talking with another alcoholic. There's life. There's the 90% of the life outside of AA in terms of with dealing with other people that are fundamental in how we can cope with life, how we deal with life, and what we do with other people and how we react, and see how our influences and what we've done in the past, or what they can do to us to make us react. And it was part of a book reading club that I was doing this morning, book reading group that we're reading this morning. It's about working with others. And as you progress through the steps, the end result is that we are in a position to help people through this textbook. It's a textbook, so we reread it, we read different parts, we read paragraphs, we go through it. It's like going to, college to actually learn something about, say, geography or design or something. we're actually here to understand the concept. It's not about an interpretation. It's about understanding what's written in the book correctly. And at step 12, we should be at a point where we are then trying to, even before, but by this point, we should be looking at helping other people, other alcoholics. And I've read this working with others many times as part of the group and also individually. And it's made me think about things today, about what's happened in the past, at least just the last month. I mean, I know as about sort of using not using opinions and stuff, but it's about how we're supposed to live, or how what gets thrown in our way still when we have processed the AA program of recovery. It's not going to give you some kind of superpower of not allowing shit to happen. Things happen for a reason, and sometimes good, sometimes bad. Now, I've been dealing with the death of mother and also a struggling business over the last 3 months of my last 3 months of my sobriety. And I have personally, and I like to come out and actually say that, yes, I'm recovered, but I'd like to also state the reason why I'm able to be is by being honest and saying that some days I have really shit weeks. Yes, I go to some meetings or talk meetings about how brilliant they are at the moment and stuff, and how they're feeling amazing, everything's going their way, which is a lot of the time, but it doesn't enable for me personally to relate to that person or the newcomer, that suddenly they think everything's going to be okay, they're going to be brilliant all the time. So when they're later on in the steps, a year or two into sobriety or something, and things don't start going to plan, or things you're having bad weeks, is that you think you're doing something wrong, or that was not part of the AA program. Going back to sort of the early days of Bill W. and Dr. Bob, they too had blips in their sobriety when they didn't drink. What I'm saying is that they didn't also have amazing sections of their life that went to plan. Now, with working with others, this is what made me think today about what I'd like to just quickly sort of run through with you today. Now, the emphasis on from working with others is to describe how you are to be approachable, approach to certain individuals, alcoholics, when trying to help them to get sober and work them way through the steps. And a lot of it is about how you were very much like them. So, you know, in the pits of despair, or drinking daily, a litre of gin a day and some wine was my tipple towards the end. But they also need to understand how that person, the person that is speaking to them, is. And it's not a robotic process. I'll just go on to page, and I'm just going to randomly start on page 97. Appreciate it, Taylor, if you obviously haven't got a big book, it's not a problem. It's not sort of, you don't get told off, it's not school report day or anything. Never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you are doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of our recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the good Samaritan every day if need be. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interferences with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money or your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to the police, courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Now, you have to also appreciate when this book was written in 1939, and then prior to this, a lot of this concept in terms of, well, we don't necessarily go to sanitariums that much, hospitals, potentially jails, and asylums was the first port of call predominantly for alcoholics to go into hospital. And obviously we don't get necessarily phone jangling anymore. It's usually messages for myself personally, WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff. But the very first sort of section of this paragraph talks about, to me, is about how I have a responsibility. Now, for the newcomer also is that there's a lot about how we carry these principles in all our affairs. Now, if I was just to be a good alcoholic in terms of a meeting alcoholic, then there's going to be, I could be excellent at what I do within the AA program. I could do service. I could know the book inside out. But I need to, as a human being. Hey, Rob, great to see you. Thank you. I need to not, it's not like I'm forcing my way of thinking now, my new spiritual actions, the way that I want to be as a person. I don't force this onto other people, but I need to interact with them in my new capacity on a daily basis. As I was saying earlier about it's not, you've got to sort of then live 90% of your life with the muggles of the world who don't know anything about the Alcoholics Anonymous, the AA way of living, or have read they haven't had to go from a litre and a half, a litre of gin a day and red wine, like I said, to stop and then cope with the reason why you were drinking, the allergy of drinking, the resentment, the fears, the anxiety, all this information that we have had to process to stay sober. Now, I like not interpretation, but taking it on board that sometimes when I've read something a lot, that I like to look at it as if it was directed at me, as opposed to, say, like I said, working with others, this is how we're talking as if we're trying to speak to another alcoholic who we want to try and help. But if I reword this in my head, not reword, rethink it and say, never avoid my responsibilities, but be sure that I'm doing the right thing. If, sorry, oh, got interrupted by my sorry, assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of my recovery. Helping others, if you notice, there's quite a few bits that I read through on this section that will, it doesn't say alcoholics. Now it's blatantly talking to them about alcoholics, but it's on about the foundations of others. So to me, my interpretation in thinking of things like this is how, is that saying to me, well, others, is that my kids? Is that my family? Is that my wife? Is that my mum and dad? It's an information act that I like taking on board and saying, because it's very important that I do. I've realized that the very early on, the first couple of months, I'd be, like I said, happy and understanding the steps, but still then come out of the meeting and be a total belligerent little bleeper to the rest of the family because I couldn't cope with how I was dealing with things. But I wasn't actually doing anything nice to them. And 10 or 20 years of drunkenness makes a skeptic out of anybody. So they need more work than alcoholic, I think. But I didn't realize that at the time. Skipping right down through to last paragraph, though an alcoholic does not respond, there is no reason why you should not neglect his family. You should continue to be friendly to them. The family should be offered your way of life. Should they accept and practice spiritual principles, there is much better chance that the head of the family, which at that point, obviously in most cases in that time frame would have been the man of the house, there is much better chance that the head of the family will recover. So even again, as I was saying about how I would take the initial first part of this page 97 into how I should be doing things just generally in my life, it's already saying that, well, hey, if he's not very interested, let's just have a chat with the family about this process. But you also have to remember, for those that have sort of gone into the history side of things, but luckily, obviously, for us, say luckily, but for ourselves, we have the meetings to ourselves. There are what they call open meetings, which do allow non-alcoholics, the family members, to be part of, as long as they understand that they're not allowed to join in. But going back to the 1930s, when this was being processed, a lot of the meetings involved going round to somebody's house, into the kitchen or the lounges, that you'd have your discussion about the drinking, the alcohol and stuff, while the family are in the next room, or making the coffee and joining in. So it was natural to talk this way in terms of offering that sort of relationship, that interaction with the peoples around them. So I don't suppose, in terms of if that sort of relation to nowadays, it would be quite alien for them to understand that we of alcoholics of now have to we're sort of like in a separate bubble in our own zone in the meetings, and we then got to understand how to then carry these principles or this understanding, or explain how you're getting on to the people that you're surrounded by, or cats. Page 98. It is not the matter of giving that is the question, but when and how to give. That often makes the difference between failure and success. The minute we put our work on a service plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon our assistance rather than upon God. He clams for this and that, claiming he cannot master alcohol until his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth, job or no job, wife or no wife. We simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence on God. And as I was saying about how the last few weeks have not gone to plan in any shape or form for myself, as a human being, that paragraph again to me is saying, reacting to me and telling me the same thing that it's almost like reiterating information that I know that I'm working on. There's no way in hell that without the program and speaking to the other alcoholics, having a spiritual way of thinking and the concepts, and actually talking to my higher power and asking guidance and things, that Keystone Group, Jay, is, I would have been in a lot worse position. I would have been drinking again. I would have been self-pitying a lot more than what I have done. I wouldn't have been there for my family. I wouldn't have been there for my mother's funeral. I would have not coped with a lot of things. I still don't know the scenarios with my family side of the business. Financially security will, the fear of financial insecurity will leave us as part of one of the steps. When it seriously does happen, it will, for myself, kick in. But it's not a consistent thing. Once I understand, I know what that problem is, I know how it can be resolved. I personally don't necessarily know how it's going to be resolved, but because I'm relying not on myself, it doesn't become the escalated problem that it used to do in the past. And this is what I'm again saying about how, even though we were reading this earlier on, it was quite funny that I was able to look at these, because I enjoy and thrive on the fact that the Alcoholics Anonymous program has changed my life, not just for myself, but also for my kids, and the people that I'm around. Purely incidentally, is that I read things like this now, and it's almost like it's talking to me, or it's something that I need to listen to about myself. It's not, I'm not like interpreting or giving you an opinion of mine. It's how the book is written. What I'm saying to you at the moment about, or what I'm reading is word for word from the book. It's how you are at certain points in your life, certain points through your steps, or what is happening to you in any different circumstances that you can relate back to. And as like I said, this is a textbook for living. It's not an interpretation, or you don't take chunks of what it out. It's like if you're doing a degree in photography, you wouldn't just do year one and then skip the rest and then get a degree. The whole point of working through a program or a textbook is to take on board and do what's involved within that program, not take out the chunks that you want to work on. So little things again. I've just made some highlighted bits from today, which is quite good potentially for you, Taylor, seeing as you pretty early on. Hope I haven't scared you off your very first Zoom meeting. But it was just what I also like doing when I'm just not necessarily in a zone for a specific looking information or guidance. I ask for guidance, and then I will skim read, thumb flick. I don't know if I presume that's the same terminology across the water for when I'm looking through pages on the book, and just randomly certain words will stick out, and I'll read them, I copy them, and then I look at why I'm doing that, and then I'll go through that for quite a few pages. And obviously the very first one, which is hopefully good for yourself, is the very first portion, the very first page, that is very important when I need to think about how or why I'm feeling the way I am, is the very first part there, Taylor. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Now, that was the very first thing that had opened, probably because it's been opened 3 million times and it fell open in that position. It probably needs some kind of tape to hold the page in. If people want page numbers, I can give you them, but if I'll just read them off, but I can copy them into the chat after. That's obviously XIII. And again, now this is working forward onto how to carry things in through your life, and how by skipping things, not doing things properly or not doing things thoroughly, can counteract what the whole process of what the book is about. I mean, by now, on a Sunday evening, I would have been, well, I wouldn't even know what I am, let alone what day it was or who I'm supposed to be doing. Why should the fact I should be on a meeting trying to help other alcoholics? Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. XXV III. So this is just me skim on, and again, I'm not using my opinions. These are words and paragraphs or sections out of the book. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. XXIX. For me, again, feeling self-centered, alone. You've got to help me. Why is everything happening like this to me this week, this month? Why can't the business go really well? Why can't I message my mum and speak to my mum today? Why was she not here when it was her birthday? Me. Doctor's opinion, that one. There is the type of man who is unwilling to admit that he cannot take a drink, XXX. For the next few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. Page 3, which is Bill Wilson's story. this is how and the where of it, why of it. I mean, a year ago, I was doing amazingly well financially. Everybody was doing well. Everybody was well, as in, here. And that kind of applause came my way. I had the car that I needed. We moved house. Money wasn't the problem. And this is how I started thinking and remembering these things. This is why I read the book, because it makes me understand. There's so many pages here that I'm not the sort of person that's going to memorize everything. My son could. He remembers some security digit I didn't realize that that was a Wi-Fi password that he for a caravan that he memorized 5 years ago. He didn't even look at the password. No, he's not right. Honestly, don't. Anyway, he's a lovely lad, but I'm not like that. And gradually things got worse. Page 5. The courage to battle was not there. Page 6. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man. Page 8. You can see how quickly, just in one few lines, that I've taken the light and the happiness down and slapped it. And that's how potentially that I could have gone, or how I can go, even not drinking. How life on life's terms can knock me down. But if I was just running on myself, then that would still be the case. Life makes these situations happen. I can pray for family members not to die, but that's not going to happen. How do I deal with that? How do I understand that? How do I deal with, how did Bill go from being up here to down here and not having the will to do anything else? It's because we're not now running on self-will. I fundamentally totally understand the reasons why people leave us, accept it, the reasons why money doesn't rule the world for me and how it shouldn't do. I will survive. My God and my understanding has an understanding and direction for me that potentially I don't know about, and I accept that. Whereas before, it would have been a beyond process of, I'm in control here. I need to sort this problem out now, not sit down and do some 3D printing or put the Xbox on or something. It's designed for me to understand that I'm not supposed to be running the show. Where am I jumping to now? The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we discovered a common solution, page 17. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished, page 18. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless, which is talking about how we were and how we move forward. But it's this process of having to work through a common solution is the program. Each individual is a personal stories described in his own language and from his own point of view, the way he established his relationship with God, your own understanding of God and your own understanding of your higher power. These give a fair, this is talking about the stories at the back of the book. Sorry, Tyler, obviously you didn't relay that to you at the beginning. Membership and clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. Now, I'm giving you interpretations in a sense about how I'm feeling, because it's almost like I need to intertwine what I'm on about with the paragraph or a section of words that I'm trying to explain what they're there for. I have to personally interpret my personal feelings or what I've gone through into that to a degree, so that then hopefully you can take on board your own concept of what that means. I think that makes sense. To be doomed an alcoholic death or live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. 44. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. Page 62. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to fulfill futility and unhappiness. Page 66. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. 61. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking and frightened? 67. We never apologized to anyone for depending upon our creator. Page 68. What I'd done there quickly, this is what I was saying, I flick through, I try and sort of skim read, and then these things that were the ones that stuck out. So what I'm saying to myself here is that I'm still needing need to look at what my daily process of thinking does, and the steps have enabled me to understand that. So have I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or frightened? Well, I'm frightened, I'm fearful, and those fearful things can then turn into resentments. But I'm totally happy now to, one, tell you, not hide it, speak to somebody who I know who will understand it, or write it down and understand it and not hide about it. And finishing on, it must have been purely, there's reasons why. I never apologize to anyone, whether they understand my way of thinking, for depending upon the creator who's kept me sober and had a happy life and made me a better person for those around me or want to stay around me. They actually want to be in my company. My family do. And I remember every evening or every good night that I say to them now, because that wasn't an option 3.5 years ago. I, like I said, wouldn't know anything of this part of time in the last few years of my drinking at all. I will finish off on this then quickly, which I will just, it's the last part that I've gone way too far. Bear with, I will finish it once I find it. Ah, that's why. It's the very last paragraph in italics on 103, which is the working with others. It's very profound to me, and obviously at certain points in your recovery or your non-drinking, depending whether what you are. But after all, our problems were of our own making. Bottles were only a symbol. Besides, we have stopped fighting anybody or anything. We have to. Simple-ish. So